What if I told you that the reason she isn't interested in you has nothing to do with your looks, your money, or your luck, but with a few invisible psychological signals you're sending every single day without even realizing it? Signals that quietly push her away while you're trying your hardest to pull her closer. And the moment you learn to reverse those signals, the chase ends, the pressure disappears, and instead of convincing her to want you, you become the kind of man she naturally leans toward, the kind she thinks about when you're not around, the kind she feels safe with, curious about, and slowly, almost mysteriously, drawn to without understanding why. Attraction cannot be forced, but it can be invited. And this is the first truth most men struggle to accept, because forcing feels active while inviting feels passive. Yet in female psychology, the harder you push, the faster interest slips away. Because desire is not a switch you flip in someone else's mind, but an emotion that must grow naturally inside her, and emotions resist pressure the same way your hand resists being pushed. The more someone insists that you feel something, the more your mind quietly rebels, which is why chasing, convincing, persuading, or trying to impress often creates the opposite effect, since these behaviors signal anxiety and neediness rather than strength and stability. And when a woman senses that you need her approval to feel confident, she subconsciously feels burdened, because now she is responsible for your emotional state. And that responsibility feels heavy rather than attractive. While invitation works differently, invitation says you are welcome to step closer if you choose, but I am complete either way. And that subtle message creates safety, curiosity, and freedom, which are the emotional conditions where attraction grows best. Because people move toward what feels safe and away from what feels demanding. So when you slow down your energy, speak calmly, listen more than you talk, and stop trying to sell yourself like a product, you remove the pressure she might feel around you. And instead of thinking, how do I escape this interaction, she begins to think, why do I feel so relaxed here? And that relaxation is powerful because the nervous system is always evaluating whether someone is stable or unpredictable, grounded or reactive, secure or needy, and women are especially sensitive to these emotional cues, often picking them up long before words are processed. So your posture, your tone, your patience, and your ability to be comfortable with silence communicate far more than any clever line ever could. And when you demonstrate emotional self-control and quiet confidence, you create an atmosphere where she can breathe, where she does not feel judged or rushed, where she feels free to be herself, and in that space, attraction begins to bloom on its own. Not because you demanded it, not because you convinced her, but because you allowed it to grow naturally within her, like a door left open rather than one being pushed from the outside. Neediness and chasing quietly destroy attraction because they signal emotional dependence, and emotional dependence feels heavy rather than desirable. Since when a man constantly seeks reassurance, sends repeated messages, over-explains himself, or tries too hard to stay in a woman's focus, he is unconsciously communicating that his sense of worth depends on her response, and the human mind instinctively pulls away from anyone who appears to need something from them, because need creates pressure, and pressure feels like obligation, not excitement. And desire cannot grow where someone feels responsible for managing your emotions, which is why the more you chase, the more she distances herself, even if she cannot logically explain why. Because at a subconscious level, she senses that the interaction lacks stability, and stability is the foundation of trust and attraction. Whereas calm confidence works in the opposite way by removing that pressure entirely. Since confidence says, I enjoy your company, but I am perfectly fine on my own. And that emotional self-sufficiency feels light, safe, and grounded, making it easy for her to lean closer rather than step back, because now she is choosing you freely instead of feeling pursued. And choice is what creates desire, not persuasion. So when you stop texting constantly, stop trying to fill every silence, stop overgiving attention, and instead focus on your own goals, your routine, your purpose, and your self-respect, something subtle changes in how she perceives you. You begin to appear centered, composed, and valuable, like someone with options rather than someone seeking approval, and people naturally value what seems scarce and self-contained more than what is always available. So the less you try to control the outcome and the more you control yourself, the more attractive you become. Because calm presence communicates strength, while chasing communicates fear, and fear quietly erodes the very connection you hope to build. Women respond far more to how they feel around you than to what you actually say. And this is where many men completely misunderstand attraction, because they treat conversations like a performance, carefully choosing lines, rehearsing jokes, memorizing clever responses, believing that the perfect words will unlock interest, when in reality, words are only a small part of the experience. Since the human brain processes emotion much faster than logic, and long before she analyzes what you said, she has already decided how your presence makes her feel, whether she feels relaxed or tense, safe or guarded, valued or invisible. And those feelings quietly shape her level of attraction more than any sentence ever could, which is why two men can say almost the same thing, yet get completely different reactions, because one delivers it with calm certainty and grounded energy, while the other speaks with nervousness and the need to impress. And even if the words are identical, the emotional impact is not, because tone, posture, eye contact, pacing, and emotional control communicate far more than language. So if you talk too fast, laugh too much at your own jokes, seek approval in your expressions, or constantly try to prove yourself, she senses insecurity beneath your words, and her body subtly tightens. But when you slow down, hold steady eye contact, listen fully without interrupting, and speak with intention rather than urgency, she feels at ease, and ease is attractive because it signals strength and emotional stability. And stability makes her nervous system relax. And when someone feels relaxed around you, they associate you with comfort and safety without even realizing it. Which is why a simple, quiet conversation with the right presence can create more connection than hours of entertaining talk, because you are not trying to take something from her: attention, validation, or approval. You are simply sharing space with her, allowing her to be herself without pressure or judgment, and that emotional freedom is rare. So instead of focusing on what clever thing to say next, focus on how you show up, how you breathe, how you listen, how you carry yourself. Because when a woman consistently feels calm, understood, and emotionally safe in your presence, attraction begins to grow naturally inside her. Not because of your words, but because being around you feels good in a way she cannot easily explain. Mystery, boundaries, and purpose create psychological space for curiosity to grow. And curiosity is one of the strongest drivers of attraction, because the human mind naturally wants what it cannot fully predict or completely possess. Yet many men unknowingly eliminate this element by becoming too available, too transparent, and too eager, revealing everything about themselves too quickly, replying instantly to every message, canceling their plans at the slightest opportunity to see her, and structuring their entire world around her attention, which may seem like dedication, but actually communicates a lack of self-direction. And when someone appears to have nothing going on beyond you, there is no challenge, no discovery, no excitement, just predictability. And predictability slowly drains desire, because there is nothing left for the imagination to explore. While a man who maintains healthy boundaries and a strong sense of purpose sends a very different signal. He shows that his life is already full, that his time has value, that he cannot always be reached, not because he is playing games, but because he genuinely has responsibilities, goals, and passions that matter to him. And this independence naturally creates mystery, because she begins to wonder what drives him, what he is working toward, what else exists in his world, and that wondering pulls her attention toward him without him having to chase it, since people are far more intrigued by what they gradually discover than by what is handed to them all at once. So when you set boundaries like protecting your schedule, saying no when necessary, and not over-explaining yourself, you demonstrate self-respect. And self-respect is deeply attractive because it shows emotional maturity and stability. And at the same time, your purpose gives you direction, which keeps you grounded and prevents you from orbiting around her approval. And that grounded energy feels solid and masculine, not clingy or uncertain, allowing her to feel that being with you would add to her life, rather than become another emotional obligation. And as space naturally forms between interactions, anticipation begins to build, and anticipation fuels desire. Because the mind fills gaps with imagination, often making the connection feel stronger than constant contact ever could. So instead of trying to be everywhere at once in her life, you allow space for her to lean in, to reach out, to choose you willingly, and that choice, born from curiosity and respect rather than pressure, is what transforms simple interest into genuine attraction. Emotional intelligence and empathy trigger deeper connection than looks or money, because while physical attraction might capture attention for a moment, emotional understanding is what makes someone feel safe enough to stay, and safety is the foundation of real desire. Since a woman is constantly and often unconsciously evaluating whether the person in front of her can understand her feelings, respect her boundaries, and respond with maturity rather than reaction, which means that your ability to read emotional cues, manage your own impulses, and genuinely care about her experience matters far more than any external trait, because good looks may impress her eyes and money may impress her logic, but emotional intelligence touches her nervous system, and the nervous system decides whether she relaxes or guards herself. So when you interrupt her, dismiss her concerns, joke about things that matter to her, or react defensively the moment she expresses discomfort, you create emotional friction, and friction quietly shuts down attraction. But when you listen fully, notice subtle shifts in her tone, validate her feelings without trying to fix everything, and respond calmly, even when conversations get difficult, you communicate something rare, which is emotional stability. And stability feels incredibly attractive because it suggests strength without aggression and confidence without ego. And empathy deepens this effect because it shows that you are not just waiting for your turn to talk, but actually trying to understand her inner world, which makes her feel seen rather than evaluated. And feeling seen is powerful, since many people go through life feeling misunderstood or overlooked. So when she senses that you genuinely get her, that you can sit with her emotions without rushing or judging, a quiet trust begins to form. And trust is the soil where desire grows, because the more emotionally safe she feels, the more open she becomes, and openness naturally leads to intimacy. So instead of trying to impress her with achievements or possessions, focus on mastering yourself, regulating your emotions, speaking with patience, and showing compassion. Because a man who can remain calm under pressure and kind in conflict stands out far more than someone who only offers surface-level charm. And over time, that emotional depth creates a connection that feels meaningful, grounded, and hard to replace, which slowly transforms simple interest into genuine longing as she begins to associate your presence with comfort, understanding, and emotional peace, making you not just attractive to look at, but safe to lean into and trust with her vulnerabilities. And that quiet sense of safety becomes the invisible thread that keeps drawing her closer, even when she cannot fully explain why she feels so connected to you. Self-respect and healthy detachment are magnetic because they communicate that your worth does not depend on anyone else's approval. And this quiet independence changes the entire emotional dynamic between you and a woman, since people are naturally drawn to those who choose connection rather than cling to it. And when you respect yourself, you automatically set standards for how others treat you, which means you do not tolerate disrespect. You do not over-explain your value, and you do not beg for attention. And that calm refusal to chase sends a powerful signal that you see yourself as valuable, because someone who truly believes in their own worth does not try to convince others to see it. They simply live it. And this creates a subtle psychological effect where she begins to wonder what makes you so centered and secure, which sparks curiosity and admiration, while detachment prevents you from becoming emotionally reactive or desperate. allowing you to stay relaxed whether she texts or not, whether plans happen or not. And that emotional steadiness feels safe and mature because it shows that you have a full life beyond her. And when she senses that being with you is a choice rather than a necessity, she feels freer to move toward you willingly, and that freedom transforms simple interest into genuine desire. So, in the end, understand this clearly. You cannot talk a woman into desiring you. You cannot pressure her into feeling something she doesn't feel. And you cannot chase your way into her heart because attraction has never worked that way and it never will. Instead, it begins the moment you stop trying to control her feelings and start mastering your own. The moment you build your confidence from within, protect your time, set boundaries, stay emotionally steady, and live with purpose. Because when you become grounded, calm, and self-respecting, something shifts quietly in the air around you. Your presence feels safe. Your words carry weight, your silence feels comfortable. And she no longer sees a man asking for approval, but a man who already approves of himself. And that difference changes everything, because women don't fall for pressure, they fall for how you make them feel. And when being around you feels peaceful, secure, and intriguing, desire rises naturally without force, without games, without pretending, which means the real work is never about changing her mind. It is about strengthening your character, sharpening your emotional intelligence, and becoming so complete on your own that her attraction becomes a choice, not a favor. And when you reach that point, you won't need to chase anyone because the right women will simply walk into your life and want to stay.